Good evening, Newton Piper. Good evening, 907. Good evening, Daniel. How are you all? Good morning, Tim. How you doing? I just got a message on one of my cigar videos, and the message was it was on a Ramon Iones video, and the person said best Anglo pronunciation of Ramon Iones, and it reminded me of Salter Cigars. What's his name? The guy on there. Oh dear me, my memory. R.D. Davis something. Something Davis. My brain. Come on, people. What's his name? Something Davis. Oh, I don't know. Anyway, so it reminded me of how he used to pronounce Ramon Iones, or at least some of the English people. You know what English people are like. They're not interested in being faithful to other people's pronunciations, and as far as they're concerned, to be heard, all they need to do is, or to be understood, all they need to do is speak louder when they're abroad. Hey Robert, hey Tree, hi John, Alvin. So anyway, cut a long story short, one of the ways, Beowulf, how you doing? One of the ways people pronounce Ramon Iones here in England is Raymond Allwans. I just thought that was funny. North Country Fisher. Suffolk, how you doing? Gnome Joe, how you doing? So, what have I done this evening? Well, I haven't made a pipe, but I'm in the middle of making a pipe. And it was a little bit of a... I gave myself quite a challenge with this pipe, and I'm 99% sure it won't come out the way it ought to, but I'll be happy with what I get, hopefully. Because I still find bent pipes a challenge. I haven't yet started on a diamond shank, on a bulldog, or a diamond shank bulldog, or anything like that. Hi, Jordan. So tonight was a bit of a challenge. I used a picture of a Lars Iversen pipe as a muse, which was essentially a bent apple, but I tried to give it an adornment as well. And I had in stock some rings which I had bought a while back but never used, and I must say that I'm still finding bent pipes to be a challenge. The lining things up, getting everything exactly right, and it all takes hi Josh, it all takes time. We want a bulldog. Yes, Newton, so do I would like to do one as well. I'm not sure why I keep putting it off, to be honest. It's just another it's another type of pipe, I guess. The lump of coal came out really well. There's the lump of coal. It did come out well, and it really does it is quite faithful to the shape that I was going for. And this extra bit of sort of polished bit in the middle is just a bit of a bonus. I'm really happy with how it came out. I'll leave it there. Actually, somebody did send me a message about this earlier. I sent them a price. I need to check if they responded. No response. Well, what do you know? Never mind. Perhaps we'll get a response later on. Well, a Rhodesian, assuming it has a round shank, should be easier than a diamond shank bulldog, yeah. Okay, so anyway, the pipe that I started today, actually I think I'll show you a picture of what I was aiming for, and it is very ambitious, but I just, I do like the lines of Lars Iversen pipes, and the same for Nana Iversen, same kind of idea, a lot of the pipes, although she's kind of carving, excuse the pun, carving her own path. I see a lot of similarities. I mean, and she trained under Sixten Iversen, so there's a lot of familial heritage there. So this is the pipe that I was looking at in terms of just the sweeping lines, that kind of part of it. And I'm about halfway through the pipe, I guess, and this is where I'm at the moment. So I've done sort of the initial shaping of the rim, which has come out beautiful, really happy with that. A nice sort of rounded top, it's nice and smooth, it's pretty clean. And we just need to see how the next stage goes. So that was the shape. So you can see where I was going there. Obviously it's not exactly the same. And this obviously needs to have a little bend in it as well once we get there. I'm not entirely sure yet what I'm doing with the shank, because I'm not sure if I'm going to flare it out a bit or not. So anyway, I didn't turn the rest of the shank, I just started it off. So we'll see what happens. I'm a little bit apprehensive in terms of whether this will be a pipe that I can actually sell in the end by the time it's finished. And the drill, that's alright. There's the drill there. It's a touch higher than I would have done normally, but with the bent pipe I find it it's pretty good. It's not far off, and it's only really the right apex of the drill that's gone beyond it, the pointy bit. It's quite a big bowl. It's a big pipe. This really will be a big pipe, and definitely will be educational, Tim. I'm not scared of pushing myself, of challenging myself, even though I have not yet done a bulldog. But I'm not scared of challenging myself, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It does distress me a little bit if I spend a couple of days on a pipe and it's for naught. My time is very important to me, but that time is not lost because it's an investment in learning, in development. But it is a large pipe. No, Daniel, it's the opposite actually. Every pipe starts off potentially as a smooth pipe. So if you imagine this pipe as it is there, to rusticate it, I've then got to gouge out bits of the briar to get that rustication. So you're losing some of the briar. You've got to start with a thickness at some point. Rustication is digging into that thickness, whatever that thickness is when it starts. You're digging into that thickness to create the rustication. The only way you would add weight with rustication is if you glued on extra sort of design bits, but otherwise you're always taking off. So if you see that pipe there, that pipe would have had to have started thicker in order to remove some of the briar to create those bumps. I'm afraid I have to apologise once again about the delay in shipping out some pipes. I sent out sort of the first half of the pipes that had to go out about a week or so ago, and I had hoped to send the rest of them out this week, but this week was a crazy week. Most of you have heard about I was in and out of hospital with my daughter this week. Thankfully she's okay, she's fantastic, and it's in the past pretty much now, but it has meant that my time has been a bit shorter. I suppose I could have not made a pipe and gone to the post office, but going to the post office is going out on having to a bit of a trek, but whereas making a pipe means going out to the backyard. So there we go. So apologies anyway. I'm not great at doing the post office at the best of times, but at the moment it's really longer than it should be. So all being well, I will get them out during the course of this coming week. I actually spent a lot of time doing the bit work on this one. You can see the shaping that I've done there. This actually was a complete straight edge, and it doesn't want to focus. There we go. A really nice rounded profile there. And that should be nice and comfortable. We'll give it probably just a little touch of a bend there, and we shall see. I'm not quite sure how the grain is going to pan out on this one. It was kind of a flamey kind of look to it. Definitely not a straight grain, but I like the idea of it being a flame because it kind of matched hopefully what the shape of the pipe's going to be. So hopefully that will work out okay. In the final analysis, I could even rusticate this pipe. It wouldn't be the end of the world. Yeah, I'm more worried about how that shank's going to look. And this adornment is, it's kind of okay. It's a bit cheap and cheerful. It's probably nickel or something like that. It's not silver or anything like that. I actually drilled it in order to fit it over. So I profiled the end of the shank to take this ring, and you can see it's very, very slightly off center, but it's pretty well positioned overall. I've glued it on, and I actually, as I say, I had to the diameter of the ring, the inside diameter, was roughly the same size as this mortise, so I had to drill it, and my lathe wasn't happy with that at all, but I persevered, and we got through it. Lots of metal shavings everywhere and lots of heavy vibration and my lathe dancing around my workbench, but we got there. And I'm hoping that I can just sand this as usual. I think the sandpaper that I have will work on wood and metal, so hopefully that will come out okay. I'm just not sure how polished that will look, how the metal will look. It might end up being some kind of brushed finish. I'm not too sure. It's my first time really that I'm using a metal ring, so we shall see. This ring is actually 3 pieces. It's a metal piece, a spacer, a divider, a plastic divider, a acrylic divider, and then another ring. So they have to be sanded down a bit. Hey Mike, how you doing? So John, the bearded Welshman, clearly has got nothing to do with his time, putting out videos as often as me at the moment, and that's saying something. Good night, Suffolk, sleep well. And I'm actually not smoking anything at the minute. I was smoking some of this Seattle Pipe Club Deception Pass, which I cracked open a few hours ago. Daniel, I think you're prophetic, because just today, I was speaking to Phil Rivara about that. On Friday, I went out and bought some charcoal. Really, what I need to do is buy a whole load of, like it by the bag, in powder form. Oh, unbelievable. This is no good to me. I should have read the label. These are charcoal tablets. It's useless. I need charcoal powder. Anyhow, so I will be developing some kind of coating, because, for instance, on a pipe like this, it would look a lot neater. Although there's nothing wrong with the bowl, it would look a lot neater if there was a coating. It would like really just finish off that difference between the black, the stained area, and then black again. It would just work very well. It would make the stained area pop a little bit more, because at the moment the difference between the inside of the ball and that is not as great a contrast as black to that. I could mortar and pestle them, I guess. Yeah. I wonder if I stuck it in a food processor. Cigar ash is also an option, but I don't know if that's. I don't know if I could use my own consumed ash for other people's pipes. They're not capsules. That was the idea, Mike. When I spoke to the shop on the phone, they told me that they had capsules, so I just bought them without thinking, without looking at them, and they're tablets. So they're either got to be crushed, or I'll just wait till I can get some powder. I know I can get it on eBay. I can get it, by 8-ounce bags for next to nothing. So I'll probably do that. Just means I'll have to wait a bit. Yes, in terms of a cigar, North Country Fisher, I was actually thinking of that. I got an order in from GQ Tobaccos the other day of some tobaccos and bits and bobs. And one of the things I bought was a fantastic cigar. I bought 2 of them. So I'm going to show you one of them actually. And 4 of Virginia is good stuff. So these are some of my limited edition cigars, and when I want to condition a cigar or a new cigar that I've just got, and to get those lovely aged aromas, that's what I do, is I stick them in this box. So the cigar, Palo Duro Piper. So this is the Monte Cristo Linea 1935 Dumas, or Duma. There's 3 cigars in the line. This is the smallest one of them. This is like a Corona size. And they're just fantastic. Even though they've just come out, they're young, they're pretty fresh cigars. I think I've already done a video on my channel, I don't recall. I don't remember. I don't recall. Anyway, so they're very rich from the off, from day one. And this is a new thing as well, having a band on the foot, which is, I've not really seen that before. Right, where's my cutter? Has the image gone dead for some people? Hang on, guys, just hang on. Right, Just let me know if you guys can see my hand waving in front of the camera. Hello, hello, it's off to work video. It's grand for Beowulf. Well, in that case, we can just carry on. Okay, cool. Glad to hear it, Mr. Analog. Right. This, by the way, is the Xikar EXO. I bought this from, it actually came from the States, from a cigar guy that I know. I don't recommend this cutter, by the way. I'm only using it because I can't find my regular one. Very rich cedary flavour on the dry draw. Do I have a favourite? Well, as I've said many times, a punch cutter. Yeah, I started off with punch cutters, but I prefer a straight cut by far. A. Chapman Connoisseur No. 1 is my favourite cigar, really, but you know, it's really down to price, to be honest. If price was no object, you know, I may well go for a different cigar. But you know, some people might say, well, of course, yeah, we'll go for a Cohiba or maybe one of these. But the truth is, as a go-to daily cigar, they're a bit too rich. They're great, fantastic, but once you've smoked one, you probably wouldn't want to smoke another one for a while. Whereas the Connoisseur No. 1, it's lovely, it's flavourful, it's aromatic. It's and with a small a, it's not actually aromatic, but the flavours are really, has a lovely essence to it, and it's just a lovely cigar. Thanks, Robert. The V cutter. So I've gone through the whole range of cutters. I started off with a punch, and I enjoyed using a punch, I must be honest. I then went to the V cutter because I got the one of the best V cutters in the business. Oh man, my brain. So a famous cigar accessory makes lighters and cutters. Not Xikar. Xikar is my favourite cutter, but I mean, they make V cutters as well, but the one that I'm thinking of is not Xikar. Colibri, thank you, Daniel, that's the one. So Colibri V cutter to me is the best V cutter in the business. I can't say that I've tried every V cutter out there, but for me the Colibri is just unbeatable. It's sharp as anything, does a really deep cut, and it's got a good sort of shape. I haven't got it here, I keep it in the car. It's got a good shape, so the cigar head fits in like a concave sort of groove, and then you cut, and it just cuts a really deep cut, and it gives you a fantastic draw. However, you do have to be careful that with some cigars where the caps are not deep enough, that you could actually be cutting into the wrapper, and then you have the head of the cigar starting to unravel, so you do have to be careful. You think Colibri is overpriced? I don't know. This I just wish I could put my hands on my Xikar, the butterfly shaped one. My desk is a complete mess today. I've just not had the chance to sort things out, and it's just, I can't find anything at the moment. I've just kind of cleared a bit of a space here in the corner, so you guys don't see me as being a most untidy, messy yob that I really am. There it is, it's right in front of me. So for me, this is the number one cutter, the Xikar, and it's really on the pedigree of that cutter that I bought this one when it came out. I mean, there was such a lot of hype about this one, and the main hype being the gears. You know, you can see the gears actually moving inside on these grooves here. You can see it looks really manly, and the point of it is that both blades come in simultaneously, so you're not squashing the cigar. Whereas with something like this, when you see one comes in, although they officially both come in, but one will always come in faster than the other. But because it's so sharp, it's really no issue at all. This is my first straight cutter, and I've always gone back to it. This one here, I don't know if you can see, but it's got like a layer of black kind of coating on it, powder coating, and it's starting to chip off all over the place. There's this blue color coming through, and I mean, it's got a lifetime guarantee. I suppose I could send it back, but it does an okay job. I don't even think it does as good a job as the butterfly one. I don't know if that's the official name. I call it butterfly. I don't know if it is actually called that. Cuban Crafters. I haven't heard of that one, VW. Good evening, Herferville. Good evening, 907 Piper. So definitely bowl coatings is going to be something that I'll be exploring. I noticed that all of the sort of higher grade pipes, sort of medium to high grades, but certainly the higher grades, the inside of the bowl is just as smooth as the outside of the bowl, because everything that they do is done to the nth degree. Really, everything is, they're such perfectionists. Where's my Paul Menard pipe? So here's a good example. This is a Paul Menard pipe I bought some years back. Never smoked, and I suppose nowadays I could consider converting it. It will take conversion because some of his pipes have actually got, they've got the nylon tenon, and he also puts in a nylon mortise, which he hasn't done on this one, and it's a lovely thick shank, and I could quite easily convert that to 9mm. But this pipe is just such a gorgeous pipe, I would be too scared to do it. Maybe I would send it back to Paul. The grain on this is just lovely, the staining on it is fantastic. Just check out that bird's eye. It's just a beautiful, beautiful pipe. Seamless joint. So the inside, I wouldn't say as smooth, but it's nearly as smooth as the outside. I'm very, very inexperienced, but in my inexperience, I have a feeling, which may be complete bunkum, but I have a feeling that actually a rougher surface on the inside aids the creation of the cake. I think so. And that's why all the pipes that I do, I sand them very lightly, but I leave them rough so that it's abrasive almost, so that the cake has a good thing to grip onto. Yeah, so that's what I was talking about, Daniel. You inherited a Zippo lighter but haven't used it. Well, I can understand that if you're trying to keep it, if it has a sentimental value. A similar situation for me is a pipe lighter that I got, a Zippo that I got from Art. He sent me a beautiful engraved lighter, which I very rarely use because I'm worried about damaging it. but I have it close at hand always. And it says on it London Calling, YTPC. This is actually a regular insert, but I can change it out anytime. And very cool gift. It's actually got a nicer sound than my own one. Well, when it comes to Bics, there's nothing more reliable. So my backups are always Bics. I have a Bic in my EDC bag, I have a Bic in my garage, I have a Bic in my car, and I have Bics here in the drawer. Because if there's one thing that you can rely on, it's always going to be a Bic lighter, that's for sure. Daniel, if a pipe has its own coating, then you certainly don't need to worry about building up that cake immediately. That cake will build up anyway over time, but the whole point of the bowl coating is that the briar is protected, it's not going to burn out, and you probably won't get that sort of burning wood flavour when you first break in your pipe. But I prefer naked bowls myself. North Country Fisher, do I prefer a soft flame or jet for cigars? Generally speaking, as a rule, assuming I'm indoors, it will always be a soft flame. Certainly for Cuban cigars. For non-Cubans, depending on which cigar it is, I'll sometimes use a jet because I'm a bit prejudiced towards non-Cuban cigars, and I think it's not worth my time to use a soft flame because the cigar's not that good anyway. But that's a load of rubbish as well. The non-Cubans that I do smoke are really nice. So I generally will also use a soft flame, but I will not be as anal about it with a non-Cuban cigar. But with a Cuban cigar, generally speaking, as I say, unless I'm outside, I will use a soft flame. Yeah, that pipe is actually a gorgeous pipe, and it's I could never bring myself to smoke it. I bought it before I started using 9mm pipes. To me, that's a high-end pipe. I don't recall what I paid for it, but it was quite a lot of money. I've got 2 Paul's pipes which are unsmoked at the moment, and I've got a couple which are smoked. And you also get he does some amazing leather bags, which he does himself. Hey, Monclaude. And this is my other one, my Paul's pipe. Cutty. Again, gorgeous grain. And you've got the bird's eye, which runs all the way around here. Lovely brindle stem. Very lightweight. And this one, what I was saying before, this is the one in which he's got because of probably the thinness of the shank, he's got a nylon insert in the mortise as well as the tenon itself. What that means is that you can break this down when it's hot as well. You don't have to worry about breaking it down when it's hot because it's there's no expansion of the plastic. Hey, Monclaude. I have actually had that pipe on eBay for a long time with no takers. And one of these days, when I've got the time and energy, I'm going to take a load of professional pictures of the pipes that I've got that I want to sell and stick them on eBay. Because I have to be honest, for the most part now, not entirely, but for a big percentage of the time, I'm smoking my own pipes, and the other pipes are not getting smoked as much. I'm still smoking a couple of the Stanwells and Northern Briars and Astley pipes, and the Radice that I got. But other than that, I'm not smoking many of my other pipes because I'm smoking my own ones. So, as I say, I've always said this, I'm not a collector for collecting's sake. I collect them to smoke them. With a few exceptions, as I've said. I've got a few pipes, special pipes, which I've put away, which are just, I would say that I have collected those. So for instance, I've got the 60th anniversary pipes from Northern Briars. I've got 2 of those pipes and I haven't smoked them. The 50th anniversary Pipe Club of London that I just got, I don't know if I'll ever smoke that. And I've got another 2 of the Pipe Club of London pipes which I haven't smoked. The only one I did smoke is the Meerschaum. The others I haven't touched. Well, Claude, that's a huge benefit of what I'm doing. I still say that I don't consider myself yet to be a pipe maker proper. I'm still way far off, being of that standard. I'm still learning. And I'm still at the position which I originally set out, which was to make some pipes to smoke, try to learn the trade for a later time, maybe when I retire, please God, to be able to just, do that kind of thing, maybe bring in a bit of an income. It's gone better than I expected, I must admit, because when I first started off, I had no idea whether I'd be any good at it or not. And the indications are fairly positive, and I keep improving. So hopefully, that will be something that I'll be able to do. Yeah, now in terms of fixing pipes, Beowulf, I have managed to help out a couple of people, although I don't advertise that I do pipe repairs because I'm not ready for that. But I got one of my YTPC friends had quite a rare Peterson pipe. It was a 9mm pipe actually, but it was one of the pipe of the years from I don't know which year. Smooth, stunning grain, a big pipe, probably something by the time this is finished, probably a similar kind of lump like this, big pipe. It was slightly bent, and the stem was blocked. Well, no matter what he did, he couldn't unblock it. Anyway, so I told him to send it to me. I gave him no guarantees, but obviously he'd seen the work that I'd done and he thought it was worth a punt. He was going to send it back to Peterson, and he was very nervous about sending it back to Peterson. And to be honest with you, I didn't blame him. I had a very poor experience with Peterson myself. It's not to say that they're not good, but I just personally had a bad experience, which I've mentioned many times. So he said he'll send it to me, he'll take his chances. I was very careful with it, but I managed to unblock it, and I also cleaned the pipe, polished the pipe, and I sent it back to him as new. And his jaw hit the floor. That moment that he got it was so rewarding. He sent me a video sort of message, and he just couldn't get the words out at how the condition of the pipe, and he was so sort of overcome by how beautiful the pipe looked. Because when you get an estate pipe, especially, see, I got this pipe just the other day. This is a Mastro de Paia. Haven't smoked it yet. I still need to do my little cleaning bits and bobs with it. It's a nice pipe. It's bent, good size. Nice rustication, smooth rim. I don't know if I'll smoke it or I'll sell it. I have no idea. I haven't decided yet. But when you first get it, if it's been smoked a reasonable amount, there will be a level of grime on it. It's just from holding it, from the oils in your hand, and from the atmosphere. You just put it on a buffer with nothing. You don't have to put any compound or anything like that. Just the friction of the buffer alone will take off those years of grime, and it will just let the briar shine through. And if you put a bit of compound, it'll brighten it up as well, but you have to be careful that you don't take off the stain. And he was over the moon, absolutely over the moon, and just that moment was worth it. It was worth every sort of minute of work that I put into it. But to do repairs on pipes that are already made, I would need specialised equipment to hold the parts. At the moment I haven't yet got a reliable way to hold pipes or stems in a reliable way that I could be sure that it's centre and things like that. On a lathe, when I'm with a raw bit of briar, I can line it up, but once it's carved, I can't stick that on the lathe because I'll dig into the briar. So I've yet to really overcome that. Thanks, John, that's a really nice thing to say, thank you. So the tenon itself to fix, all you would really do is cut it and then re-drill another one in and glue it in. That's all there is to that. If it's a straight pipe, I could probably do that. But if it's not a straight pipe, I would struggle possibly. Your first 9mm pipe, Tim. Cool. I don't know if you heard my earlier apology for the delay in the pipes going out. It's been a bit of a crazy week or so. And I must be honest, I've got a fairly busy week coming up as well, but I will do my best to get them out as early during the coming week as I can. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate your tolerance, because if I had paid for a pipe, I would want it to get as soon as possible, to be honest. So I really do appreciate your tolerance on that. Yeah, the twirls. Some of the pipes out there are really, really nice. I saw, I think it was an Ardor pipe on Lynch Pipe Shop, an estate pipe. Oh right, I remember, Tim. Cool. Okay, so you have been waiting, so thank you again. An Ardor with a spiral sort of shape all the way around the bowl and the shank, and I don't know how they do that. Whatever it is, it's very skilled. A lot of the stuff that, until you see how it's done, it just looks impossible. And bottom line, as long as you have the right tools and you know what you're doing and you've learnt the skill, anything is doable. I think a huge part of any crafting skill is your tools. And what I find is mind-boggling is when you get antique furniture, say from 300, 400, 500 years ago, some of it, which is worth an absolute fortune, but the workmanship, and they must have done it with such basic tools. I have no idea how they did that. The workmanship is just mind-boggling. Saw Mike's Briar Blues' video, his reveal of a Seattle Pipe Club blend for challenge number 10. I was way off. I thought it was Peterson Nightcap. But I've always said that I don't have a vast experience with a wide range of Latakia blends, so I was never expecting to get too near to it. But if it tastes similar to Nightcap, then at least it's the profile is there. That's a good question, Daniel. A very good question. How do I determine what colour stem I'll use on a pipe? Well, when I'm going for a more of a classic shape or a freehand shape, often I'll go for a black, whether it's acrylic or ebonite stem, because that's just the classic look. When I'm going for something a little bit more of my own design, I'll often go for a coloured stem, and I'll try to match it sometimes to the colour of the briar or to the stain that I'm using if I'm staining the pipe. So to give you an example, the series that Pipe Grump, Josh, the pipe set that he's building up of mine, is he's building up ones which are unstained with a yellow stem. Now the yellow stem I feel lends itself very nicely to the blonde kind of briar, the naked briar, and I think it works very well. This particular pipe came out fantastic. No takers as yet. I haven't really been pushing it. It didn't feature in my sale. I completely forgot to put it in my sale video, but this one really came out very, very well. Very symmetrical. It's just a great pipe. Everything worked out on it. The drill's right. Everything's right. A good way to know if you're dealing with an expert carver is, not always, but a lot of the time. I mean, if it's machine made, then there's no, obviously it doesn't mean anything. But when you, and in this case it's not 100%, but I'll show you what I mean by it, is that if you spin the stem and it's flush, whichever way you spin it, then you know the person who's made it, who's turned it or sanded it, they've got experience, they've got years of experience. Here you can see that it's just very slightly out, which I'm very happy with. You know, a lot of pipes that you buy, the stem is only meant to be one way up, and the very fact that Dunhill, for instance, has a white spot was for that very reason. The white spot was invented to tell people which way up the stem should be, and many companies do the same thing. So if you have a look at this stem, I'll turn it, and it's also very slightly off, but it's pretty close. I'm just trying to find one that's pretty much, let's see what this one's like. Again, very close, but it's not quite 100%. But the closer I get, the better I know that I'm getting at turning and sanding. And obviously the lines, drawing the lines, you know, making sure that everything is lined up correctly and central. The thing that I do have an issue with, and I'm thinking that maybe this would get resolved if I get a metal lathe, that there is a bit of play in the lathe. So I can never be 1,000,000% accurate with it. Now in terms of I should make a plateau city with a yellow stem. Cutty, right. I don't think I made a cutty yet, have I? Just saying. Okay, I get that, Josh. That's obviously going to be a shape you're after, so I'll have to look into that. If you can send me a picture of a pipe that you would like it to look like, Josh, that would help. So Tim asked, now I'm smoking one of the new Monte Cristo Linea 1935s. Very nice cigar. Windshield pipe, functional or marketing? I would say it depends how high the shield is. A lot of the Dunhill ones that you see, the shield is actually just quite small, and I'm not sure that it would make a huge difference. But you do see some which have got quite a high shield, and those perhaps do make a difference. Good evening, Dragon. Very fancy indeed. Ooh la la, indeed. Yeah, it's a nice cigar. I picked it up during the week from GQ Tobaccos. Their pricing is pretty good, even though I don't tend to buy Cuban cigars from B&Ms these days. They're too expensive. Well, you can buy the spring-loaded wind caps. You just stick them into your pipe. I mean, I have bought those in the past, and I've used them as well. The wind caps, they definitely work. There's no question about it. There's two things that they do for you. They keep your tobacco in there, and they also prevent overheating of the pipe when you're in outdoors that I can say works. I've used them myself. Have had a pipe with its own wind cap? No. Good evening, Rich. But the concept of wind cap definitely works. And another thing which I've done, which I originally thought was quite comical, and I thought it was just a bit of a laugh, but it actually does work. If you're in the rain and you don't want your tobacco to get wet, when you're smoking it, it's expanded enough that it's wedged into the pipe. You can just turn it upside down and you can smoke it upside down. I've done that and it works without a problem, so that the rain doesn't get into it. But the only issue with that is if it's a rusticated pipe, it's not the end of the world, or if it's a shot pipe. But if it's a smooth pipe which is important to you, or an expensive pipe, you really don't want to smoke it in the rain, because the rain will straight away take that top layer off. It's quite acidic, the rain. Yes, the old German, especially the Meerschaums and those kind of pipes, they definitely, most of them had hinged caps on them. I do have a wind cap somewhere, but I was actually looking for it the other day and I didn't manage to find it. If you don't mind me rifling through my drawers while I'm talking, I can do that. But it may even be in the car, so I'm not sure. I'll have a look for a minute, but I'm not going to waste too much time in it because I didn't find it last time either. Oh, look what I did find. No, that's not what I thought it was. This is a little badge, a little pin I got from the UK Facebook group, UK Pipe and Tobacco Club. The drawers in my office are a little bit of an Aladdin's cave, probably a little bit like what Tree's drawers look like, but perhaps with not as many pipes as Tree. I was talking about cigar repair the other day. This is the stuff that I was talking about, the Perfect Repair cigar glue, and that does work. The other cigar tool is okay, but it doesn't, like I said on the video, it doesn't really make your cigar a great cigar if it's plugged. It might sort of make it smokable, but it'll never make it a great cigar. Bunch of tampers from Mel. Sweet chicken. Oh, forgot about these. This is a bag of tobacco plant seeds that I got a long time ago. One day I'm going to plant them. I got those from one of my suppliers of cigars from Belgium, I think. Was it Spain? No, Belgium. I go through my cigars and I just find all the tat that I've built up over the years. Most of it's just, I wouldn't say junk, but there you go. There's a nice Bic lighter. Rasta. Well, the 2020 Club Pipe has been released. I did show it the other day. They released a pipe for 2020, which is actually the 50th year of the club, Pipe Club of London. So this is the pipe. I have shown it, you've probably seen it. It's quite a sizable pipe. It's a Mastro do Paia it has a little gold ingot, solid gold, on there to signify the 50th anniversary, the golden anniversary. PCOL, Pipe Club of London, and then it says on it 1970 to 2020, 50th anniversary. It's quite a big pipe. It's got it's got the straightened sides. It's a nice pipe. Again, I'm not sure if I'll ever smoke this pipe or not. If I really wanted to, I could maybe buy a second one of them, smoke one and keep one, but not really in that kind of financial situation, so don't know, we'll see. £200 tin. 7 200-gram tins, wow. The Cavendish tobacco was cured in wine. Well, depending on how badly you want to smoke it, get her to send them 1 tin at a time. And if she sends it 1 tin at a time, and just writes on the package that it's a gift of, I don't know, an automotive part or something like that, or a train set part or something, that's what I do. It should come through no problem. Although having said that, I made an order with Boswell's last week, which I haven't done for a long time, but I wanted to stock up a little bit on Northwoods and a couple of other bits and bobs. And I got a message, an email from Royal Mail to say that there's a shipment coming through. I might get charged by customs for it. First time I've ever had such an email, so it doesn't bode well. And that's even before they suspect that it might be tobacco. If that is the case, then it'll just get nicked. Or they'll charge me a fortune in taxes. Depends how much it is. If there is a certain limit what you're allowed to bring in. If it's beyond that limit, they'll just confiscate it, I think. Collectible tin is a good idea. Don't say tobacco tin, just say collectible tin. Good evening, Steve Coddington. Have we met before? The name rings a bell. Not sure. Yeah, you should still get it because 200 grams I think is okay. It's not beyond the limit. But if you get taxed, you know, it might cost you 30-40 quid possibly if it gets taxed, because as soon as they look at it, they'll charge you a handling fee, which I think is about, by the time they've charged you the fee and the whatever, it's usually about 12-13 quid, and then if they tax it and excise it, then you might end up paying 30-40 pounds for it. You're new. Well, welcome. Thank you very much for coming on. Good evening, Dan. Greetings from Washington State. Greetings back from good old London. They can do North Country Fisher, they can do, because it has to go through, whatever happens, however it comes in, it still goes through customs. It's not that the issue is not the post office getting their hands on it. The issue is the customs. Once the customs get their hands on it, then it goes to the post office, and the post office charges you as well for handling it. But if customs don't stop it, then it will just come through like normal, and the post office shouldn't be making a charge. Yeah, customs will always be handling it, but they probably only look at 1% of packages, if that. I would have thought. A carved wooden bowl, yeah, there's no reason why they shouldn't. Customs are only not. If they would have thought it was a new product, a new item, then they would have. See, in this country, if I bring in a new item, say somebody sends me. Say Art. I think I had this actually once with the mugs that Art sent me. He sent me some mugs, and the last one actually that he sent, I had to pay. Well, actually, it might have been the BRTV mug. I don't remember, but one of them I had to pay a bit of tax on it because I don't know why. Because it's a new product, and if you're buying a new product, there's no VAT paid on it. The tax, the VAT. So when you bring in a new product into this country, you need to pay the VAT on it. I think that's how it works. The wooden bowl smokes great, absolutely, Dan. Yeah, I've sometimes written wooden tubing, and that gets through. It's really a bit of, it is potluck to some extent. Hey Jin, 8612, can I recommend any black pipes? Yes, most definitely. There's one. As black as death. Ink doesn't get any blacker than that. If you're ordering from the EU, you shouldn't get charged because you have a customs union. Although, where are you, Beowulf? Are you in the Republic of Ireland, if I remember correctly? Or am I wrong? Daniel, there's two cuts of briar usually. Usually there's the plateau blocks and there's the Ebershon blocks. I'm not in my garage, otherwise I'd show you. Essentially, if you imagine, it comes from the heath bush, the heath plant. It's basically the root ball of the heath plant. Now, if you look at a root ball, the briar ball, it's a random shape, but it's roughly round, as nature allows it to go. So if you imagine the outside of the ball, all of that is the rough edge that you get. This plateau is the outside of the ball. So let me find a piece of paper. And I'll give you some idea. Right, this is very roughly, what the root ball of a briar, of a heath plant looks like. So if you look at if you look online, this is what you'll usually see. You'll see this big mass of briar with a little branch sticking out there. So over here you've got all the outer edge, which is rough. That's the plateau. And what they do is they'll cut it up into sections. So roughly cut like that, those shapes there, those pizza shapes there, will be a plateau block. So that will be one plateau block there with the plateau on the outside, and then there. But because they're actually quite large, so what they'll do is sometimes is they will do that, and that, and that, and that. This is very rough, obviously. So these ones here, These ones end up being the Plateau, and these ones here end up being the Ebershon. And the Ebershon, what they will do sometimes is cut it like that. They will take this bit off, and you end up with an L shape. And those are the two basically types of blocks that you get. The blocks that I buy are all, generally speaking, Plateau blocks. I have in the past bought these Ebershons, and I do find that the Ebershons tend to have more pits and flaws than the Plateaus, at least in my experience anyway. So a lot of people use these for rustication, and they're a lot cheaper as well, usually, unless they're high quality. At least I think that's the story anyway. The cigar's tasting pretty good, despite the fact that it's really new. Usually when I get a cigar, I'll leave it in the humidor for a good few weeks before I'll even look at it. But I don't know, tonight I just fancied it. But it probably is a little bit early, but it's still tasting really good. The blend in this is very rich, and it's fantastic. Really good cigar. The first one I had of this blew me away. The first time I had this cigar, considering that it had only just been released. No, the mortar pipes don't have Plateau, at least not that I've ever seen. The mortar pipes are they're bogwood. It's wood which has been underground in kind of damp conditions in a bog, essentially, in a swamp kind of environment, and it's been compressed over thousands or millions of years, and well, according to my belief system, it wouldn't be millions of years, but a long time, let's say that. Steve, if you're a woodworker, you should have no problem making a pipe, really. I have never made the Churchwarden, no, but I may well be soon, because I've got a couple of long stems coming from America very soon. In Germany, there's loads of sites you can buy from, and they've got a really fantastic selection of tobacco, and you shouldn't have any problem bringing it in. And some of them sent to the US as well. Briar is most definitely easier than mortar to work with. Mortar is an interesting material. It can actually be really light, but the grain, the wood itself is very fibrous, and if you catch it wrong, it just splinters. I was very lucky. The first pipe that I made came out really well. I gifted that pipe to Andrew Sirigliano, and the second one I tried after that, I tried to do a freehand sort of shape with it, and I got stuck halfway through, and it's still sitting in a drawer somewhere. One day I'll possibly come back to it. Smoky Dragon, I've not come across many people from Wales. I have come across one or two. There's one in particular, I can't remember his name though, Dan something, but not that many. Dock Worker, nice, that's a good tobacco. I've been smoking that quite a bit. I've really been kind of experimenting with Orientals, and I've been enjoying tobacco with Turkish Orientals, hence cracking this tin, Deception Pass. This is a Virginia Perique with a bit of Turkish. White Turkish! Bokeh, you have to have an idea of what you want to carve before you set off. Otherwise, you'll never make a shape. Because, at least at the stage that I'm at anyway, hence this one here, which is I'm in the middle of at the moment, you can see that the outline of the pipe there, most of it is still there. And because I drill the mortise and the chamber on the lathe, I have to have a shape in mind. I mean, I could technically drill that on a block without any shape. I could do that and then just shape by hand. Yeah, I suppose I could do that, but at the moment I don't see the point in doing that, because I can get an idea of the grain. You can't always be sure if that grain that shows itself on the outside of the block is actually going to go all the way through, but most of the time it does. So you can usually get a pretty good idea. When people say that they're led by the briar, that often happens once you're kind of into the shape that you're making and you find that there's a serious flaw and you have to go sort of change your idea a little bit in order to accommodate that flaw to get past it. That's when you kind of get guided by the briar. But I'm generally guided by the briar before I start working on it. No, Dock Worker is HU Tobaccos in Germany. Their blends are really interesting, and they've got a really good selection of blends. If you go on to Hasico, or there's another one, I think it's called Estivals, which is where Hector sent me a bunch of tobacco from. They've got a good range there, maybe 18 or 20 different blends. Well, Daniel, when you first look at the block, what I tend to do is, before I cut anything or do anything to it, I'll just roughly sand it, and then I'll wet it. And when you wet it, it shows you the grain. You see, there straight away you can see some of that grain there. So you can see there's a bit of flame grain there, which is why the direction of the grain going out like that and like that is why I went for this shape of bowl. And we'll see how well it works out. But as long as there's no major flaws, it doesn't have to be straight grain. As long as there's no major flaws in it, it's fine. I can leave it smooth. If there are flaws, I can rusticate. You always have that option. Good evening, Dylan. How you doing? Good evening, Snoopy. That's actually smoked quite quickly, this cigar. It's probably a 46 ring gauge or 48, something like that. That's a rarity. Band coming off smoothly off a Cuban cigar. Well, Daniel, as the saying goes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I think the generally accepted position is that straight grain is probably, or even the highest grade of straight grain known as angel's hair. That's generally accepted as the epitome of best quality briar. But some people, going back maybe 20-30 years ago, cross grain was very in. It was something which people said smoked better, and cross grain was the thing to have. But I think overall, straight grain, obviously it's beautiful. Straight grain tends to be sought after more than the other types. The beauty of straight grain as well is that you know that underneath the straight grain is bird's eye. So depending on the shape that you make, you know that you can make a really nice shaped pipe and get some nice grain on the side and on the ends. This is a good example. This is a pipe I made not so long ago. So it's got really nice grain on the bowl, and it's got beautiful bird's eye on the rim. With a little bit of plateau I left on it, but it's a lovely pipe. This, it reminds me of a Moretti pipe, this shape. Yeah, Hasiko is a good site. I can't remember if I've ever ordered from them or not. It's not the highest contrast stain, but it's certainly. I went for a contrast stain. I put a darker stain on, then sanded it back to reveal the grain. So yes, there is a level of contrast, but it's not what you'd call a high contrast or a golden contrast. It's, I'm still sort of practicing with experimenting with contrast grain. The Italian cigars, yeah. If you like sort of Kentucky and that kind of and barbecue-y kind of flavors, then you'll probably enjoy them. I personally didn't enjoy them. The Nostrano and those kind of cigars wasn't my cup of tea. Yeah, those cigars, they're machine-made cigars generally, and what people do in Italy is they snap them in half because they're actually sort of fat in the middle and taper off equally at both ends, and so people that tend to bend them in half and they smoke them from both ends. I'm no expert on contrast staining, but as I understand it, and I've had a modicum of success with it, but basically the concept is as follows. You stain the briar first with a dark stain. It doesn't have to be black, but it could be black, or it could be a dark brown, and you leave it. So in other words, you cover the whole pipe with a very dark stain, and you would leave it overnight. You don't have to leave it overnight, but if you want it to really absorb into the briar, you leave it overnight. So that's basically what you want, is that the stain absorbs into the briar, and the briar has harder and softer fibers. So you've got the grain and then the bits between the grain. So if you look at the darker areas, those darker areas are areas which have absorbed the stain, and the lighter areas are areas which are harder and have not absorbed the stain. The next day you sand it back quite a bit, and so you're sanding off the black stain, and all that remains is the black stain that's been absorbed into the softer areas. And then once you've done that, you bring it back to a nice smooth finish, and then you stain it again with a lighter stain. So therefore you're going to have like a light brown and a dark brown. And if you're doing golden contrast, if you've got lots of bird's eye and things like that, you can do different colours to give it that look of a golden contrast. Licorice and coffee toppings. Come on, North Country Fisher, that's not cigar smoking. Dragon Flake, I don't know. No, I'm sure somebody on here will know about it. who produces Dragonflake. Somebody did talk about that recently somewhere on the YTPC. John Aylesbury Dragonflake, Danish. An aromatic flake consisting of dark and golden Virginias, double fermented black Cavendish, and a touch of burley, flavoured with the sweetish it's got caramel, maple, and vanilla. Yeah, it could be, Tim. You might be right there. There's a lot of aromatics going on in that blend. If it's good enough for pipe smokers. Chocolate cigars. I'm not an aromatic cigar smoker. I've tried it once or twice, and not for me. It's like dipping a cigar in saccharine and sucking on it. I had the Drew Estates, they've got some, can't remember what they're called anymore, but they've got some very commonly smoked aromatic ones dipped in coffee and stuff like that. I'm sure some of you have come across them. Daniel, it's really High C Smokes. It really depends on the application. It depends what you're using it for. If you're doing photography at a wedding, a GoPro camera is not going to help you very well. But if you're a bike rider, or you're a deep sea diver, or you're a tuna fisher, then a GoPro is going to be the way to go, I would think. Germain's Rich Dark Flake is not a licorice tasting tobacco. Not at all. If you're getting licorice out of Rich Dark Flake, then good for you. You have an interesting palate. I don't get licorice at all. They do have licorice on some of their blends, on some of the Esoterica blends. You get licorice. Interesting. Let's see what Tobacco Reviews says it contains. There we go. It's a Virginia burley, and flavouring is molasses. Well, I suppose I could see how you'll get a bit of licorice out of that. But I certainly don't get licorice, and it doesn't say licorice at all on Tobacco Reviews. Molasses, that's what it says, yeah, so maybe it is molasses. Northwoods versus Penzance. It's a very similar question to your last question, Daniel. Digital DSLR camera or GoPro, it depends on what your preference is. It depends what your type of tobacco that you like. Northwoods versus Penzance, they're different tobaccos. Yes, they're both Latakia blends, but they are different. Once you get to understand the nuances between different types of Latakia blends, Balkans or straight Latakias and things like that, then you'll appreciate the difference between them. But Penzance is a great smoke. It's a fantastic tobacco if you get a good batch of it and it's had a little bit of age. Northwoods, I find I could smoke any time. It's very flavourful. It's aromatic. It's got a nice sweet Latakia in there, and it just works for me. Penzance, I probably wouldn't want to smoke it all the time. I mean, I don't want to smoke Northwoods all the time either. 75, 1792. I haven't tried 1792 actually. Is 1792 a Latakia or a Lakeland? Rich, absolutely hit the nail on the head. You know, we all have different palates and things. Although we do seem to have a bit of a commonality between some flavors. So obviously Latakia, nobody else is going to say it tastes like chocolate. You know, Latakia is Latakia. It's a smoky, woody kind of flavor. But everybody perceives them slightly differently. I was actually thinking tonight of doing a little bit of a mix-up of Deception Pass with a straight Virginia. So it was going to be either Orlik Golden Sliced, strictly speaking not a straight Virginia, but Orlik Golden Sliced, possibly the Vintage Flake from Danish Pipe Shop, or even Virginia by Amphora. Good night, Tim, thanks very much. I was thinking of doing that because I do like this blend, but I just wanted something to just round it off a little bit with a little bit more of a Virginia sweetness. Yeah, the bread note is something which I get sometimes perhaps in Dunhill Flake, that kind of thing, or possibly in Dunhill Dark Flake. I do get that sometimes. Well, they've Sea-Smoke. They've sold us some of their own brand, the James J. Fox Bankers blend. They are well-regarded blends. I think I've tried the Bankers one. I don't think I've tried the Dorisco. Not sure. I don't know, Daniel. I don't remember. It's just when you smoke certain tobaccos and you get to know them a little bit, and in your mind you're kind of trying to think, you know, with every tobacco that you try, you're always after that utopian smoke. You're always after that perfect tobacco, which, you know, if I get that perfect tobacco, I won't need any other tobacco ever again. You know, we all have that kind of dream. And so whenever you're smoking a tobacco, you're thinking of how you can mix it up with something else which will give you that perfect smoke depending on your taste at that particular time. So for me at this particular time, I'm liking the Turkish Orientals as a condiment to Virginia blends. So they tend to work well with Virginia and Perique, and that's what this blend is. But you just want to experiment and try and make it fit in with your personal preferences with tobaccos that you enjoy. So London Fog, just at the time, I'm trying to remember how it came about. It may have even been as simple as I was enjoying the Virginia Woods and I wanted it to last. I didn't want to finish it all off, so I was just watering it down or diluting it, if you like, with the tobacco, and I did that with Orlik Golden Sliced, and it just worked. It clicked. Yeah, North Country, I can understand that. I don't sort of vary my Latakia blends that much, because the ones that I've always, you know, when I have tried other Latakia blends, I've tended not to like them. A lot of the Latakia blends out there, I find them to be a little bit too acrid, a little bit too bitter, a little bit too smoky, and not enough of that sweetness and the mustiness which I get from Northwoods. I actually get that a bit from Special Latakia Flake is a very nice blend, Penzance, and blends which are similar to that. Essentially blends, Latakia blends which have got a good dosing of Orientals. Well, this cigar is coming to an end. I may well get to do that blending of Deception Pass with some Virginia. We'll see how we go. I don't often follow a cigar with pipe smoke, it's usually the other way around. But this has been very enjoyable. Mac Baren Dark Twist is very nice. I actually did a blend of Mac Baren Dark Twist with some Perique, I think it was. I think I still have some left, and that actually is smoking very, very well. Is this it? There you go. This at the time I made it up with 76 grams of Dark Twist and 8 grams of Perique. This was in December 18, so this was a year ago, exactly a year ago. That's what I've got left. I actually did a pressing. It's funny, you know, when we first started getting into pressing tobaccos, we were all at it, making our own pressings, and then after that it's kind of all not happening so much. I should really do some more. Interestingly, London Fog I found tastes better without being pressed. I did do a pressing of it, but I didn't enjoy it as much. But this one works very, very well. The Perique just blends in very nicely. Sutliff blends, well, they obviously the 515 RC1, which was the Virginia Woods match, which is pretty good, and some of the aromatics like the Malta Dolce, but otherwise, pure Latakia, you're braver than most, Tim. Otherwise, the Sutliff blends that I've smoked are the they brought out the what do they call them? The cakes. They brought out a series of tobaccos. There was a Virginia, a Vapor, and something else. Good night, John. Thanks for joining. What's that? That series of blends they brought out about a year or two ago. In actual fact, I think I opened. It wasn't the Three Nuns range, was it? But that came out at a similar kind of time. I've got so much stuff on my desk, I can't get to it all. Got a crazy amount of tobacco on my desk. So many open tins that I've been trying out. Crumble cake, thank you. Yes, Sam Online. The crumble cake series. I personally enjoyed those a lot. Some people didn't, but I actually think they're really good tobacco. And at the moment I've got a few tins of it just aging nicely in my cellar. I probably will open them up again soon. I'm not sure if I watched that, Tim. I might have watched part of it, I don't remember. Didn't you smoke it in the Mark Tinsky? Oh yeah, definitely down to personal taste. Everything is down to personal taste. And your own personal taste changes all the time. Vulcan Blue by McClellan's, I used to love that stuff. Previously known as Blue Mountain. And when I cracked it in recently, and that had obviously had a couple of years at least age on it. I wasn't so blown away by it. I remember I used to smoke it exclusively in a beautiful Ashton calabash shaped pipe without a filter in those days. Yeah, their twists really do smell very rich, but they are quite strong as well. Yeah, I've had Winslow pipes, Daniel. They're not for me, at least not the ones that I had. I don't like the briar. I don't know why. I found them to be very heavy, and I just didn't like the way it smoked. But, you know, it was early on, probably didn't have as much experience. Mike is eminently more experienced pipe smoker than I am, or ever will be, probably. I just finished reading this book today, In Search of Pipe Dreams, by Rick Newcomb. And who is there a picture of? Mike, Briar Blues. This book was written in 20... in 2003 this was written, and there's a picture of Mike there. So he's been on the circuit a long time. Well, I think if there's nothing else, coming to the end of that cigar might be a good place to call it a day, call it a night. Hopefully we'll carry on this pipe tomorrow, and we'll see what it brings, see if we manage to make something half decent out of it. So I think I will thank you all for joining me. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Beowulf. Thank you, Scottish Gaucho. Daniel, as always. North Country Fisher. Tim. Rich. Sam Online. Smoky Dragon. Sea Smokes. John. Herfavel. And everybody else. Snoopy. Dan. Tim Gordon. Josh. And everybody else. Thanks very much for joining me, as always. I wish you all a wonderful week. And I will catch you on the very next one. It's my pleasure, Daniel.